A free spirit takes on the world's wisdom about life. Chapter 1. Psychobabble is a fictional business venture. Primal man attacks modern bullshit. Every know-it-all all the way back to Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle has an opinion about life. I have no problem with Socrates saying know thyself. The ancient Greeks created the dialectic, which means you talk among each other to come to the truth of whatever you're dealing with. The book of Exodus in the Bible gave us the 10 Commandments. Dante Alighieri gave us the 7 deadly sins in the Divine Comedy in 1371. Benjamin Franklin gave us the 13 virtues. Around the 1880s, people started creating ideas about mental hygiene, which were tips on how to live a good life. On February 19, 1909, Beers, along with philosopher William James and psychiatrist Adolf Meyer, embraced that future by creating the National Committee for Mental Hygiene, later the National Mental Health Association, and what we know today as the Mental Health America. These people had good intentions, but they failed because they wanted to create the mental health industry to parallel the medical industry with clear, specific disorders/diseases, which you cannot do because everybody is a unique loner. Money got into it, it became all about money. The more people you say are nuts or have mental problems in some way, the more money you make. Nowadays we call it gaslighting. Convince people they have mental illnesses to make money off them, especially the weak, lonely ones looking for someone to talk to for a fee. The drug companies pretend they can solve human mental misery with drugs. It's just like the novel Brave New World predicted: get everybody pacified on drugs so you can control them. The problem with every psychology self-help know-it-all expert in the modern capitalist world since Dale Carnegie came on the scene is that they think according to the capitalist religious matrix they were brainwashed by. What I mean is that every last one of them comes out with some list of strategies, steps, rules, etc. on how to live a good life. Stephen Covey had 7 habits of highly effective people. Phil McGraw had 10 life strategies. Erik Erikson had 8 stages of life. Lawrence Kohlberg had 7 stages of morality. Abraham Maslow had the hierarchy of needs. Sigmund Freud created the psychosexual staircase of childhood development, then gave us some convoluted bullshit about an ego, ID, and superego. Why can't I just be who I am and what I feel in my nature like my cat? I am who I am in my own purity, the way I was born. I owe the world the money to pay my bills and follow the laws to avoid jail. Beyond that, I studied the Bible was a kid. It was a cautionary tale about how evil the human race is. I don't want to live in this matrix called human society. If human society was created by the Anunnaki, a group of space travelers who needed to create a slave race to mine gold for them as said on the cuneiform tablets of the Sumerian dynasty, then they screwed up by making us so angry, jealous, selfish, and evil. I live a great life alone in my own head. Nobody out in the world is selling me any of their bullshit. They tried to indoctrinate me in grade school, but I'm out of the matrix now. I don't believe in paying taxes. That's a criminal system which makes us all a bunch of slaves, but nobody rises up against it because of the power to brainwash people into being obedient, pacified clones. They did the same thing with the mental health industry. They convinced almost everybody that it's a real bona fide science, but the fact is that every human being lives alone in their own heads, known to no one but themselves. Because of the fact alone, there cannot be a science of human behavior. They have entire industries called neurolinguistic programming and subliminal hypnosis to supposedly change you and improve your life, but I say it's another big lie trying to suck unenlightened people out of their money. I just scanned a free ebook called Treatment of Psychoneuroses Through Re-Education of Cerebral Control at positive-club.com. Have a look at it for yourself. Are we a bunch of idiots falling for crap that is created to aggrandize the egos of phony intellectuals looking to create new cool sounding crap to make money and elevate their status in this field we call psychology? What is so complicated about discovering one's true nature the way their God made them to be, then living by it? Does all this modern psychology stuff get in the way of that? Is this so-called field of psychology more damaging than good because it fills up naive people's minds with wrong ideas that take them even further away than they are now from discovering and living by their true natures? Is this field of modern psychology a modern-day unsung tragedy that takes people away from discovering that pure essence inside of them and living by it, and replaces it with a bunch of garbage about the subconscious mind and the results of a bunch of silly experiments which offer stupid tips like if you watch someone hit a cartoon punching bag, it might tend to make you aggressive and violent, or people live on a spectrum of introversion and extroversion? You belong at one fixed point on this spectrum, which is not true because I am a fluid human being. I am not introverted or extroverted. I exist in the moment. I do what I want according to what I feel and the situation going on around me. I cannot be plotted on a graph or with a number like an IQ and told this is you, a fixed entity. You are like this all the time in all situations. Life doesn't work like that. Life is me creating my life as I live. I, the me, exist in no box. I am a creature of sensual passion, lust, natural wisdom, and enlightenment. This is my true nature. I don't care what anybody says about me unless they try to interfere with my life. By the same token, I follow the basic law of civility. I don't mess with other people who don't want me messing with them. Beyond that, I do what I want. My life is a dynamic flow to me. It doesn't exist in some box some phony intellectual claims he got to by research. If all these phony intellectuals were really as wise as they pretend to be, they would abandon this phony field and live their lives according to their true natures, but they don't because they're gutless wimps living a lie, knowing they are spewing out bullshit day after day but going along because they get a paycheck and minor status as fake wise people. In this book, they use fancy terms like cerebral control, psychoneurosis and deconcentration, claiming they have some technique to change your mind. You cannot change your brain, change who you are by nature except through physical means like drugs, a brain injury, shock treatment, etc. You cannot will your way to a better consciousness. The best you can ever do in life is to discover who you were naturally born to be, then honor it by living by it. That's it. There is no such thing as some deep mysterious mental spiritual reservoir of ideas within you called the subconscious mind. There is only you and the purity inside of you. Once you discover this pure essence, there are no internal hidden secrets anymore. All the cosmetic exercises, workshops, techniques, and theories are nothing next to that one pure entity an individual was endowed with called his soul or essence. You are who you are by nature. The best you can do is know it and live in harmony with it. No modern-day, trivial psychobabble tactics can do anything for you unless they help you live more closely by your true nature. The subconscious mind is a fake term for your long-term memory. Sigmund Freud tried to say there is a hidden part of you that you repress because it contains painful parts of your upbringing during childhood that affected your development as an individual. Now you hide it away, but you must uncover it through psychotherapy so that you can face it, understand it, deal with it and heal. First of all, a lot of people have pretty good childhoods. There is no trauma from there that they now hide away in their minds. Secondly, the issue is not one of repression. It's one of memory logistics. I only have so many gigabytes of space available in my conscious mind, RAM, random access memory, which deals with what I am doing right now and what I am thinking of doing in the future. I don't repress my childhood. It is stored in my long-term memory. I don't access it because I don't want to. I have no need to. It would waste my time to do so. I am interested in my life right now. If I wanted to retrieve my childhood memories, I would start to think about it and my long-term memory would retrieve parts of what I remember that are stored in the neurons in my brain somewhere. There is no mysterious, lurid, cool subconscious mind inside of me that houses a part of my identity unknown to me on a conscious level. Your childhood memories are stored in your long-term memory and it could take a bit of effort to retrieve them. That's not repression. That's the limits of the human brain. It cannot remember everything immediately on demand. This is a tragedy, to have the field of psychology based on a big lie like this. Do chimpanzees have subconscious minds? It seems really stupid that animals that share over 99% of our genes would have some deep hidden part of the mind within themselves. Why would they need something like that? I hide nothing from myself. All my thoughts, consciousness, and ideas are on the surface of my life in my conscious mind. I have had enough dreams to know they are random, meaningless images coming from all over the memories of my life stored in my brain, not some deep-rooted hidden parts of my mind that only a so-called psychoanalyst can unravel. It's a big fraudulent sales job of selling fake knowledge. Most of the dreams I remember are so stupid and ridiculous that they can't possibly relate to my life in the real world. The subconscious mind is a metaphor for the soul, who you are in your true nature. The thing is that your soul is not a hidden part of you. It's as plain as day. Just discover your true nature. That's your soul. I thought psychology had answers, but I had them all along. When I was young, I thought there was an advanced group of people somewhere studying matters of life which they wrote about in all those psychology, self-help type books that started to come on the scene in the 1970s. I was looking for the answers to life. I got brainwashed to think that it was there in these formal system-sanctioned academic fields which were made up of well-researched, rigorous official system knowledge as well as the philosophical theories of past philosophers. I was intimidated by society's institutions to think that whatever they put out is the legitimate, dogmatic knowledge and wisdom of life, but it eventually exploded into oblivion when I saw that it was discrete bits of knowledge gained by doing what amounts to silly experiments that come nowhere near the pure, basic soul of man and how people live by intuition. It's simple. I am who I am the way I was born. God, the creator of all things, made me this way. He gave me intuitive, inherent wisdom that unfolded as I grew to maturity. I followed the nature he gave me in my purity as a human being, so now I'm enlightened and free. All the so-called knowledge the world produces in everything but the physical sciences is questionable at the very least and manipulative bull at its worst. It was all created by people hiding behind degrees and titles pretending they know something advanced, but if they're so advanced they would see that their social sciences are a little box they created for themselves and set off on a course to explore their lives for the unique experience it is based on what they feel within themselves that their creator gave them, but they don't. They follow the artificial values of the world, case in point, psychoanalysis. They make it out to be some profound, legitimate study of the deep recesses of the subconscious mind. It sounds intriguing and mysterious to the uninitiated, but to people like me, it's another example of lies masquerading as legitimate knowledge. The subconscious mind is just the soul, who you are in your true nature, but most people don't know who they really are because they live in the pragmatic world and follow society's rules, thereby censoring what they really feel as pure, free bohemians. If you lived by your free spirit, your normal mode of thinking is as who you really are, your subconscious mind, not this artificial model of life your society operates on. There's nothing mysterious about this so-called hidden part of you. Just because Freud sat around entertaining the fantasies of rich Austrian women doesn't mean it's righteous knowledge. Life is common sense. If you don't release your sexual energy, you're gonna start thinking about sex. It's got nothing to do with traumatic events in your childhood related to potty training. What a pile of dada, yet thousands of psychiatrists continue to swear by it like a bunch of clones in the fairy tale The Emperor's New Clothes. Anybody with guts looking for real truth and happiness in life lives by their own reality as a case study and unique experience of one. They leave the bull of the world behind, which is why none of the so-called social science/self-help experts gets it, because they're living in this little box rather than saying screw this crap, I'm gonna live my own life freely, pursuing what I feel. All the so-called gurus have their X number of steps, stages, or rules to a better life which even they don't follow, because life as lived is a holistic affair, not some mechanical process to achieve linear goals, defined by capitalism, by following one-liner discrete strategies of life. I came to the realization that all this life advice/life management stuff is a fiction created to fool people into thinking these phony fields have the goods on life in order to make money off people and otherwise control them, because none of it addresses the way people really live, intuitively by what they feel within their spirits. About a decade after I came to this realization, I came across an interview with Thomas on the radio, who has been speaking against the massive categorization of the human being since 1962 with the publication of his book The Myth of Mental Illness. But even though he has been at it for the past 50 years, he said they don't want to listen to him. It took me over 10 years before I found another critic like me in the mainstream media. These voices of truth are censored or shut out of mass media access, probably because the drug companies pay big bucks for advertising and the media outlets don't want to get their cash cow mad at them. The so-called professional people in the mental health industry would rather live in a delusionary state of denial and collect a paycheck than admit they're experts of meaningless verbal diarrhea. If a person is free and enlightened, he or she has no choice but to pursue the real truth of the human condition as they feel it, not buy into some psychobabble snake oil someone is selling. They've created massive fields of liberal arts knowledge and categorized the human into hundreds of parts and supposed mental illnesses, but it's all a lie because every individual has his own truth. Nobody has the right to judge anyone else if they're not hurting anybody, and life is not a fixed moment, therefore not a fixed diagnosis. So if someone diagnoses some person with a mental illness based on some test or subjective observations, the next day that person might not be feeling like that label, yet multi-millions of people fall for it and take the drugs given to them to supposedly cure these mental illnesses. They say it's not your fault if you're a weak, pathetic, whining, low-level human being. When they say it's not your fault for being a wimp or otherwise a disgusting person, this takes the responsibility away from the individual, whereupon he or she is first relieved that the psychobabblist has said it's not his fault, he's a jerk. Then this person gives the psychobabblist the power over his life, whereupon the psychobabblist makes money by writing prescriptions and having therapy sessions with this patient. It's all about money. The big deception in the modern world of mental health is that you are not responsible for your weaknesses and failings as a human being. Your failings are supposedly caused by 1. A traumatic experience of childhood like being abused, which almost every defendant's lawyer of a serious crime brings up in his or her trial. 2. A biochemical imbalance in the organic, physiological brain that an individual was born with. They can't do anything about it, so they're not responsible for their less than stellar performance as a human being. These are total lies geared to make the mental health industry more appealing to the mainstream, who find it easier to seek treatment now that they were told that a lot of their negative behaviors are beyond their control, but they're not. It's all a grand scheme to sell mental health drugs and therapy. The truth of life is that you create it as you live it, day by day. You not only create your own thoughts and actions, what you do and think also causes the release or non-release of endorphins and neurotransmitters in your brain. This creates your biochemistry, which determines your basic mood and attitude day by day. Back in the day, people lived through the Depression, the war, and concentration camps. They had no time to feel traumatized and contemplate their misery through therapy. They had to find a job to earn money to survive. Personally speaking, I live every day as I experience it. I'm not nostalgic about the past, and I can barely remember it anyway. I've had some tough situations when I was young, but they're long gone now. I can barely remember them unless somebody brings them up. It's just the big lie to connect your past with who you are right now in order to suck money out of you in therapy sessions. Drugs can't cure anything in the mind because almost all mental problems people have are the result of disharmonious spirits. They don't live by their true natures. They betray themselves by following the artificial values of the world, then wonder why, despite reaching all the markers of success in a capitalist world, they still feel empty inside. This emptiness causes most of the anxiety, addictions, and depression in the world. The biochemical imbalance theory is a big lie because psychiatrists can't measure neurotransmitter levels in the brain unless they do an invasive spinal fluid extraction. Even then, every individual has their own baseline. You can't tell who has an inherent biochemical deficiency which physiologically makes them sad. We create our own biochemistries through how we live and what we do. I grant the fact that some sadness is caused by tragedies, but life goes on. If sadness goes on day after day, it's the person's fault for being a wimp, getting down on himself, sitting around not releasing his natural energy, not some lie of a biochemical imbalance beyond his control. It's a great excuse to take the blame off the individual for causing his or her own misery, but it's not true. It's a great way to sell drugs and psychotherapy which do not solve the weaknesses in people's spirits. I actually know a guy who was diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive behavior, which is considered a disease caused an imbalance in the brain. He told me he just got tired of acting like an idiot, set out on a course of health and well-being as described in my health book, just basic stuff like taking responsibility for his life, exercising, eating healthy foods and working a job. He's muscular and married now. My theory and his theory is that when people don't release their natural energy from their true nature, it causes feelings of emptiness and anxiety within themselves. They try to deal with these unpleasant feelings by doing mentally unhealthy things like turning to negative addictions, getting depressed, or in his case, repeating meaningless behaviors over and over again. You can solve these problems easily. Get up off your ass. Pursue whatever is inspired within your free spirit. They thrust these massive paradigms on us, and they got these supposed experts with the power to say we're not normal, we're off, we're screwed up in a certain way, we're mentally ill, then tell us how they can fix us. And the funny thing is that virtually all of us accept it without challenging it. According to conformist system thinking, they know what's good for us better than we know ourselves. This is insanity that we the people allow these phony experts to diagnose our kids with learning disabilities based on these flimsy lists they have of what constitutes attention deficit disorder, which are behaviors that every kid shows here and there. Then they try to say we have this deep psychological disease called depression, which is beyond our control because of a brain imbalance, so we have to take drugs for the rest of our lives, when the truth is that we've lost a hold of our free spirits by following the artificial values of the capitalist world and pop culture entertainment. The real problem virtually all the time is that we lost our natural sense of inspiration. We either get it back or stay in our pits, regardless of how many antidepressant drugs we take or how many psychotherapy sessions we ramble through. Most of us have money problems because we live above our means. That can be solved easily by stepping down a few steps in luxuries to live a more basic lifestyle based on positive things, not frivolous desires. Many people have love and relationship problems. Regardless of how close you are to somebody else, they can't give you a strong spirit soaring in flight. You have to create it on your own. Love, money, or psychobabble can't solve the problem of human existence. The only thing that can is the individual connecting to his free spirit, which connects him to his divine creator. If you honor your free spirit via releasing the natural, inspired, sensual and loving energy in your soul with intensity every day, that's the only way you can possibly live anything that comes close to a great life. Everything else fades in the dust next to this type of lifestyle. Losing yourself is simply a feeling that you betrayed yourself by not releasing the natural potential energy you have inside of you when you wake up every single day. Release it, you feel good. Don't release it and your inner voice starts calling you a gutless wimp for not honoring who you were born with the potential to be. Self-betrayal is everywhere. Nobody was born to be a pale-looking, weakly, overweight bureaucratic type. We were born to live in the Garden of Eden, yet the modern world has taken us away from our true natures. Then we wonder why we feel a gnawing sense of emptiness and get all kinds of degenerative diseases, so we try to get rid of these negative feelings by eating junk food, going to a movie, reading a romance novel, going shopping, beating somebody up, etc. All this emptiness comes from the same cause: people not living by their true natures, therefore not releasing their natural energy, which results in a feeling of self-betrayal, which could be happening at a subconscious level because most people aren't aware that they're violating their free spirits the way they were born to be. They're living by capitalist, pop culture, religious values, which are all artificial. The fake knowledge tragedy of the human soul. The people within the system acting as its leaders and wise people are mostly brainwashed by their belief that the social sciences, humanities, philosophies, and religious knowledge they were taught is the formal, absolute authority on life, but it's not, because everybody is an individual living a different life and nobody really knows what anyone else is really thinking, so all that supposed wisdom is somebody else's ideas, not yours. You are the only authority of your life despite what all them system clones say, trying to get a piece of you one way or another, pretending they know something deep and advanced about the human condition, therefore pretending they know something deep and advanced about you that you don't even know yourself. It's a big con game of the so-called social sciences, government, and religious forces trying to establish that they have advanced formal knowledge to understand people, therefore have the authority to categorize people according to their criteria and control the ones who buy into it, thinking that these phony experts actually know something more about them than they know themselves. This is a dangerous situation. Society has degenerated to where they start categorizing us at age 5 based on IQ tests and a number of standards they have created for learning disabilities, attention deficit disorder, autism, etc. Then it continues into adulthood with the Diagnostic Statistical Manual/DSM, where they pretend they are able to categorize people into a bunch of fictitious mental health categories they created for themselves, which all fail because every individual is totally unique, his or her thoughts known to no one but themselves, plus the fact that everybody's life is a constant flow. You don't get some label, then your life becomes that label 24/7. You are a constantly moving, flowing entity. Even so-called depressed people aren't down all the time. They spend a lot of time feeling average like most other people and sometimes even feel good, but the psychobablists put a label on them and now they're supposed to live down to it. They try to say all so-called mental illnesses are inherent, that you're born with something wrong in your physical brain, but they don't say that people create their own biochemistries through how they live and what they do. You create your own moods and thoughts through a conscious act of the will followed by either action or inaction. It's always about either being true to yourself by releasing your natural energy or letting it sit inside of you unused. I can usually spot happy people. They're the ones expending their natural energy every day with intensity and love for the process. Everyone else is anywhere from miserable to average next to these people. There is not some deep, hidden force inside of you keeping you down that you need drugs and therapy to control. It's just you being a little wimp-assed crybaby, but if they told you that, they would not be able to make money off you through drugs and therapy. All those military guys crying that they got PTSD are a bunch of wimps who don't have the strength or the will to get up every day to do something useful and live one day at a time. They all want a disability check. What about all those concentration camp and war survivors in the 1940s? They had no wimpy mental health professionals telling them they were traumatized and needed therapy. They had to get on with earning a living. The mental health people try to make you feel good by saying your wimp-assed life is not your fault. You were born that way. There is some physical malfunction in your brain, but don't worry, we'll act paternalistic and sympathetic to you as long as you keep paying us for mental health drugs and therapy. The idea of a hidden subconscious mind is false. Your dreams are just random thoughts, musings, memories plus a concept called incubation. You dream about things you've been recently thinking about. They don't have deep, symbolic meanings. There's no dream analysis one-size-fits-all cookbook. Everybody's symbolism is different. To me, a gun might represent power and control. To someone else, it would be a tool of oppression. There is nothing inside of my consciousness that I'm not totally aware of. I don't hide or censor anything from myself. I have no hidden subconscious mind contrary to what the entire field of psychoanalysis is based on. My life is what I think and do every day. There is no lurid cesspool of lust and violence buried away inside of me. It's all right here, on the surface, in my conscious mind, yet they try to make money off people by convincing them to explore this fictitious subconscious mind through endless therapy sessions. In real life, you have some moral rules and criminal laws to follow about not messing with other people or interfering with their lives. Beyond that, you have to pay your own way. That's all you owe society. The rest of your life is yours to do with as you please, totally freely if you want, away from cultural indoctrination if you choose. When I was younger, teachers and self-help motivational gurus offered me guidance and solutions in the form of discrete one-liners or X number of steps, stages, strategies, rules, habits, theories, etc., which all together amounted to set a few goals and work on them day by day. But this is boring and artificial next to living by your natural inspiration for whatever you think is beautiful, adventurous, fun, and glorious. Society has created a bunch of fake knowledge and big, fraudulent formal institutions that are trying to make us think they have the advanced, scientific expertise to help us deal with our lives that's much better than the inherent wisdom our Creator God endowed us. The funny thing is that the human race got along fine before all this phony knowledge was created in the last 100 years or so. They're trying to separate us from our true natures and get us to give over control of our lives to them, the mental health industry, the self-help industry, psychology, psychiatry, sociology, psychotherapy, cognitive therapy, the law of attraction, the ultimate edge, the 7 habits of highly effective people, and any other science of the mind they claim to have come up with that will supposedly enhance your life and solve all your problems. It's all a big scam to make us feel powerless and indoctrinate us to think that somebody else has the answers to life better than we have within ourselves, so that they can intimidate us and make money off us through mental health drugs, therapy sessions, and oodles of self-help, psychobabble books and tapes. I'm not disputing the fact that a few people like autistic children, schizophrenics, and people with traumatic brain injuries have something wrong with their organic brains and need help to try to improve their ability to think clearly, but the big, massive scam has been to blame every human weakness and failing on an organic, inherent disorder of the brain that can only be fixed by drugs and therapy. It's a big lie. The vast majority of us were born with perfectly fine brains, not inherently defective ones as the mental health industry is currently preaching in a big way. You create your biochemistry through how you live. You create your own depression, anxiety, neuroses, phobias, and addictions through what you do or don't do. Inactivity, misery, and negative thinking change the biochemistry of the brain to make you feel more miserable, tired, and lethargic. Your mental weaknesses are not the result of an organic defect in your brain beyond your control, as the mental health industry is trying to have us believe. You create your miserable, tense mind by following the artificial values of the world that you got sucked into buying, so you can undo it by following your true nature the way you were born to. If you follow your free spirit, you live a vital, inspired life. As you develop strength and self-respect by purging your natural energy, your mental problems go away. Global warming is the current tragedy afflicting planet Earth. Cultural indoctrination is the tragedy afflicting the souls of people in modern Western society, and the funny thing is that most of us have been so massively brainwashed that we think we're free. We don't even realize that we sold out our true natural identities to this package deal of life marketed at us by the mass media, the capitalist marketing machine, the formal education systems, and government propaganda, which are all in cahoots in trying to turn us into a bunch of passive, manageable consumeristic spectator clones. Go back to George Orwell's novel 1984 with his talk of Big Brother and the big TV screens everywhere. Most of us willingly sacrifice the free pursuit of our lives in exchange for comfort, entertainment, and good-tasting food. It's the tragedy nobody wants to admit to. My take on modern Western society is most people sitting in their comfortable homes and apartments, plugging into some kind of pop culture entertainment, eating comfort food, feeling cozy as complacent consumer spectators, but in fleeting moments of clarity when their inner voices assert themselves, they know they betrayed their souls. They did not do what they really wanted to with their lives. They did not become the people they had the potential to be if they had the guts to follow their free spirits and do what it wanted them to do. This is what I believe modern Western society has degenerated to, a bunch of lost souls living by artificial standards detached from the true natures they were born with. Nobody dreams of ending up an overweight, mundane, tired-looking, uninspired person, but this is where most people end up in a technologically advanced, pop culture world. They didn't do what they really wanted to do with their lives. This sense of self-betrayal sits inside of them and sends them further into feelings of emptiness and misery. There is a way out. You can always regenerate yourself by making a worthy effort to live, to release the natural energy in your soul every day. This is the only way to be happy in the glorious sense, as opposed to some mundane idea of happiness you got from the society you live in. In a lot of ads, an image of happiness is sitting on a yacht, sipping wine, but this won't make you happy. Nor will a shopping spree where you buy a bunch of stuff at the mall. The only way to really feel happy is to release a lot of natural energy from your soul with intensity and love for the process. Do this every day for the rest of your life. That's it. There's nothing else that makes you feel high on life all the time. Do you want to see a real winner of life? Find someone who does something inspired, tough, challenging and worthy that they really love to do every day. The learning disabilities con job on kids. I'm especially irked at the head game they pull on so many kids with their theories and syndromes, all illusions of the business model of academia. You have all the parenting skills in your head right now that you will ever need just by being gentle and following your instincts of love. Your children are fine without some phony therapist diagnosing them with attention deficit hyperactive disorder so that they can make money on therapy sessions and pump the kid up on drugs while screwing his mind to give him an inferiority complex. These kids are fine by themselves, but the world comes in and says you don't fit into our mold, you're too rowdy, too free, you don't listen to us, you can't do these boring things we want you to do. Then the kid who's just a dumb kid thinks there's something wrong with him and his life is destroyed while parents play along shelling out lots of money to try to cure this child who doesn't fit. Many parents are actually relieved after their kid is diagnosed with some kind of learning disability because it implies that the problem is organic, beyond their control, so they can't be blamed for being poor parents. As long as they go with the program, spend money on therapy and pills, everybody will be happy, except for the kid. The therapist and drug companies will make money, the school board will get extra funding for schooling another LD kid, and the parents will get a convenient excuse which takes the responsibility away from them. Love and attention will raise every child as well as you can. The rest is his uniqueness as an individual beyond your control. Let the kid learn on his own, doing what he wants with somebody giving him personal attention to help him along. That's what education is supposed to be. Let the kid learn on his own by exploring his life and helping him along. Chapter 2. The mental health industry is mostly a lie. My fight with psychobabble. Do whatever moves you. Learn whatever you want. It's all about spirit, youthful spark, or joy for life. You either got it or you don't. If you got it, you have to work it by releasing your natural energy all the time to keep a strong hold of it. If you don't do this, you're missing out on the true spirit of life regardless of what delusions you might fill yourself up with, like all them sad sacks on the business TV networks acting like they got it going on, but they have no idea that they're a bunch of brainwashed, generic, one-dimensional, linear capitalist caricatures. At the end of every day, ask yourself, have I honored my spirit today the way God created me to be by releasing a good dose of my natural energy? That's all you need. All the psychobabble in the world can't touch this as the solution to the human condition. Modern-day wisdom from the formal field of psychology fails. They have to keep expanding it with useless knowledge in order to pretend they're on the cutting edge of discovering new insights about the human condition when the answer was inside each one of us when we were born, but somewhere along the way we stopped listening to ourselves and gave our power to the talking heads on TV, the social science professors on college campuses, and the slicksters writing cheesy little self-help books and tape packages to show us the secrets of success and happiness. The people of the world have been brainwashed to think that we get wisdom about life by going to college, taking X number of courses in psychology and other social science subjects, then we get credentials proclaiming us as psychologists, counselors, therapists, life coaches, life experts, etc. These people are then certified as the wise people of our society who supposedly have the answers to life, ready to sell us their expertise. It's a con job because wisdom comes firstly from the intuition you're born with. You have to be able to shut off the world enough to listen to it. Secondly, you analyze your experiences in life and learn from them. Thirdly, the lowest order of knowledge and wisdom is learning it in a book because we operate by instinct and nature. Through the many days that make up our lives, the psychobabble in all the books can't come close to helping us understand all the thoughts, feelings, and actions we go through all the time. You can only understand yourself the way I figured it out, analyzing myself to discover my true nature, how I naturally operate. The purpose of life is to love it enough to strive to live it as fully as you can with what you got. Wise people try to get the most out of their lives. They strive to be vital and healthy. If someone was licensed to be a psychologist but they don't have this natural intuitive love of their lives, they're not wise regardless of how much academic research they can spew off. Except for free spiritism, all the alleged knowledge about how to live as best as you possibly can is created by three basic types of people. 1. Con artists and liars pretending they got some advanced knowledge that can help you transform your life, set you on fire and make you a winner out there somewhere. It's snake oil, aka useless knowledge. These books and tape packages usually have very slick packaging. They are out to make money. 2. People who studied the social sciences in college, got a few degrees, now have to justify all the time spent in these useless fields by doing elaborate sounding research using quantitative research methods which yield minor conclusions because they don't address the soul or the essence of a person the way they really live. 3. People with rose-colored glasses on who have never been on the other side of the tracks to see how some people barely survive day by day, so they write these cutesy little self-help books about 101 life makeovers, 8 steps to a better you, the secret laws of attraction, etc. Some of them even tell you stuff like take a bubble bath and have a glass of wine, as if that's gonna do anything to solve your problem of existential identity. These people aren't out to con you like someone offering you the tools to make you a billionaire, but their powder puff knowledge is nevertheless still useless. The human being cannot be dissected into specific traits because everything you do is done in a holistic, intuitive way. Therefore all that psychobabble analysis out there is meaningless as far as I'm concerned. You don't fall in love based on some personality compatibility test like the people at eharmony.com would have you believe. Love lies buried in the soul until awakened by an object worthy of desire. No test in the world can tell you what awakens your desires. We don't change. If we think we do, it's all artificial indoctrination. Discover the pure essence that is you and honor it, or become another brainwashed clone like all the other lost souls, many with delusions thinking they're onto something great because they're following some cheesy psychobabble from out there. If all this psychobabble crap they've created in the past 20 or so years is so advanced and cutting edge, how did humanity manage to make it all those thousands of years without going extinct? How did the world give us the likes of Jesus Christ, Socrates, Plato, Alexander the Great, Copernicus, Galileo, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Thomas Edison, and Henry Ford, who didn't have the benefit of knowing all this modern-day self-help knowledge? My quest was to explore my life until I figured it out. I gave the conventional system of knowledge a chance by studying psychology and philosophy in college and reading self-help books on my own until I realized that psychology dissects everything about people into parts and tries to do scientific studies on them. The philosophers of the past generally didn't have a lifestyle like I do, with access to sports centers, libraries, TV, radio, stereos, computers, etc., all of which have enabled me to develop a totally free lifestyle in pursuit of my own version of happiness. They didn't have the means to develop a lifestyle similar to my daily quests to honor myself and try to feel the perfect feeling by releasing my natural energy intensely, which is why I render them all null and void. They're too cerebral. They sat around thinking too much without doing anything else. The modern-day self-help gurus don't seem to get it either. At least I haven't seen one that gets life the way I live it. All of them are too ready to dissect human life down into some capitalist or New Age formula they've created, always made up of a specific number of rules, strategies, phases, tips, virtues, steps, etc. If you see a book offering some kind of list of X number of factors to transform your life, you know it's useless, because life is not lived by following any artificial set of rules. No one has ever lived by the 10 Commandments except for Jesus Christ. We live by heart, intuition, freedom, instinct, emotions, and soul. The psychobabble term called self-esteem. Another big New Age, Self-help delusion is this idea that you have worth by your very existence unconditionally without having to do anything. This is what they're teaching the kids in grade school, calling it self-esteem. It might be useful to help kids who think negatively about themselves, but it can't help me solve my real problem, which is to give me worth within myself without trying to get it from artificial values out there in the world. If I sit around thinking I have worth without doing anything, I quickly start to degenerate into self-contempt because I'm betraying who I was born to be by not releasing that natural store of energy inside of me. It doesn't matter what you think. Thoughts are cheap. Everybody has the greatest, most noble thoughts around. They're called fantasies or wishful thinking. That's why they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's even fashionable to think highly idealistic thoughts about serving your fellow man and being eco-aware, but it doesn't mean anything unless you're living by it. It's the action created by your heart, body, mind, and soul that gives you real worth, not sitting around deluding yourself with false bravado. You have to know who you are, then honor yourself by releasing your natural energy all the time. It all comes from within you. You are the path to your own enlightenment. The best somebody else can do for you is what I'm doing here, telling you that the world is full of crap. Get over the massive brainwashing machine. Find yourself, trust it, and live by it. There are a few other themes I see repeated over and over again in the self-help, psychobabble industries, as though they're profound insights, but they're basic common sense for anyone with enough brains to try to think for themselves, like 1. Some things you can't control. Focus only on what you can control. 2. You can get people to like you by showing interest in them. 3. Success is defined by either materialistic socio-economic capitalist values or New Age spiritual values where everybody seems to be meditating and connecting to the divine force in the universe. Like I said, life is random. You might be dealt luck or tragedy on any given day. You can't control things beyond your control, but you can control how you deal with them to the best of your ability. I notice this big need, especially among women, to be loved or at least liked by other people. For me, what other people think of me is none of my business. I try to be a pleasant, non-threatening person as a matter of pragmatic common sense, but my allegiance is to the power within me that was given to me by whatever created me. I don't particularly care if other people like me or don't. I honor who I am. That's my purpose in life, and I won't fake interest in anybody just because I want to manipulate them into liking me. I'm straight with everybody. I like you if you respect yourself and respect me. If I see a fat, couch potato type or some pretentious elitist full of image, I have contempt for them for dishonoring this gift of life they were given by the Creator by being bottomless pits of pacified consumer spectatorism. You either like me or you don't. Either way, I don't really care, because I got my own game to play in releasing my free spirit without worrying about what other people think of me. Finally, in my life I've met only a handful of people like me who live to release the spirit within themselves to get the most out of their days for the sake of the higher reaches of the human spirit, where the reward is simply the act of doing it. I live to enjoy what I do. I have no great goal-setting strategy to achieve some illusion the world might have tried to brainwash me with. There's no ulterior motive, like I became CEO of my own company and got on the New York Times bestseller list. I don't particularly care what the rest of the world says. Stephen Covey's big idea in his book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is supposedly, what do you want people to think of you when you're dead at your funeral? That's how he starts his book. What do I care if I'm dead? Why would I even want a funeral since I don't go to them now? Life is for the living. When you're dead, you're dead. Take it like a mature human being. Your day will come. The only legacy that matters is living a great life while you're alive. After that, it doesn't matter, because you've moved on from this plane of existence. You will be forgotten by the human race, so don't fret about it. It's the way life works. How many people still think about the great Ronald Reagan even once a year, or how about Slick Willie or George W. for that matter? Once the cameras are off, their public forgets them very quickly. Covey's book is perfect for one-dimensional, mechanical thinking, Capitalist ambitious people. Think of the title. It implies that his 7 artificial habits will make you effective like a mechanical robot. It sounds like a great barrel of fun, to aspire to be effective. Most of those goal-setting, effective people eventually realize how empty and artificial their lives really are, that there's something missing, which is that they didn't follow the natural, intuitive wisdom they were born with, so now they're a bunch of pale-looking, weak conformist clones with a diluted sense of grandeur because they're bureaucratic managers somewhere. Big deal. They lost the only thing they really own, who they were born to be by nature. Lose that and you lose everything. Why do you think our modern society is screwed, with all kinds of mentally ill people around addicted to anything from food to drugs? It's people living by artificial values then trying to erase that gnawing sense of emptiness they feel for having betrayed themselves. They're a bunch of buttoned-up geeks too stupid to see that life is supposed to be a joyful experience every day, not some formula of one-dimensional efficiency in a limited artificial world called capitalism. If I ever end up in a retirement home with these types of people, I'll feel sorry for them for wasting their lives on society's illusions. I'll have nothing in common with them unless they share my passion for mind-altering enhancements. Almost everybody is playing this measuring game of look how successful I am in this capitalist world. Whenever you read somebody's bio as in a book they've written, you can be 99% sure they've written it themselves. How pretentious can you possibly be? That's what gives you away as less than honorable, enlightened and free. I don't have a bio because I don't care about the past and I don't care what people think of me if they think of me at all. I have no delusions about living in a world of loners where everybody is thinking about themselves way more than they're thinking about other people. I live for the spirit of my life every day as I experience it. That's good enough for me. I don't go around name-dropping or trying to collect honors and titles from the world like virtually everybody I know does, saving their news clippings whenever they're mentioned in the newspapers. Who cares? Life goes on as you live it. Everything you need is inside of you the way you were born. Your God created you that way. You don't need all that social science, psychobabble knowledge from the world. Most of it is a con geared to sell product, be it a book, a workshop, a seminar, a tape, or a DVD. Some of the psychobabble gurus have good intentions, but if they're doing quantitative research studies as the science of psychology wants them to do, they don't get it because that's an artificial paradigm from a capitalist world that doesn't believe an individual has their own inherent wisdom because they can't see it or measure it. Of everything else ever written about the human condition, almost all of them are building on somebody else's ideas, presuming that these people they're copying from are right because they're held up as system-wise people, but nobody is as simple, straight, natural, and true as I am. Know who you are away from everything you've ever been brainwashed by and honor it by releasing your natural energy every day to match the inherent standard you should feel within yourself of who you were born to be. After that, try to figure out a way to earn a living from it. Why I hate psychobabble and self-help. I'm addicted to the inspired spirit inside of me. That beats all the psychobabble and self-help in the world. Old blues singer. The entire psychobabble industry is based on helping you resolve some supposed wounded, inner child conflict you have inside of you left over from childhood. It's a lie. You don't have to resolve anything from your past longer than a few days ago because your mind is biologically wired to forget and move on to live in the present, but these so-called experts want to make money off you by talking about the past in endless therapy sessions. On top of that, it's a convenient excuse for all the weak people, wimps and criminals caught committing all manner of despicable crimes. Blame it on something in your past. It's a great way to deny to yourself the truth that you're a pathetic excuse for a human being. I had a great childhood. I can barely remember it now. I don't want to because my life goes on minute by minute as I breathe air. I create my life as I live it. The past means nothing. I move forward, not back. All you have to do when you wake up every morning is to try to live the fullest life you possibly can for that one day, then do it every day, one day at a time. there is nothing within the realm of the human experience that justifies any individual destroying their lives from some misguided shame, guilt, or horror based on some event they experienced in their past, and there's no good reason to keep dredging it up as in psychotherapy. Some negative events might stay in our subconscious minds, but they're buried deep if you don't think about them. Out of sight, out of mind. You aggravate it by reliving it. It's total stupidity, yet our supposed wise people insist that we bring it back and talk about it in that fiction they call psychotherapy. This is insanity. It's like Kipling said, fill the unforgiving moment with 60 seconds worth of distance run. You simply keep living day by day, doing the best you can, going forward not backward. If you're living a full life focusing on releasing what's natural inside of you to get a kick out of being alive, that's great. Your subconscious mind/soul doesn't gather much in the way of memories because all memories are transient. My subconscious mind contains the few archetypes I was born with. These thoughts and ideas are my inherent disposition. This is what comes through to remind me when I'm feeling off, that I have to honor the abilities my God endowed me with. A good example is whenever I get injured, therefore lay in bed for more than 5 days. I've gone through at least 8 bouts of this in my life. I dream about myself being strong and vital. That's what the subconscious mind does for me. It tells me I'm not honoring my archetypes. It doesn't bring up negative events from my childhood. Your inner voice and your dreams are your soul talking to you. They remind you when you're betraying your true nature. If you sit around addicted to something like food, TV, or alcohol, not doing much of anything, you lose yourself and mourn the lost self. That's when the floodgates of the self-pitying, sad memories kick in. If you're in motion releasing your natural energy, you feel good. Sad, miserable, depressed people are the ones who sit around not releasing their natural energy. That's the real cause of sadness, not anything else like past baggage. You're wasting your life and somewhere deep down you know it. The entire self-help industry tells you to get a few goals and work on them day by day, but they don't tell you that you've been indoctrinated to take on goals from the outside world rather than following the intuitive flow in your true nature, then wonder why you're still unfulfilled as an individual human being after you reach these goals from out there. It's like teaching a monkey new tricks. He can learn all the tricks he wants, but he's still a chimp. You can go out into the world and do all kinds of stuff to climb the illusory career/status ladder, try to act glamorous, sophisticated, and cool like you belong to some illusory in crowd, but underneath all this glitter and success, you're still the essence that you were born as. There's a great song somebody wrote about some girl in France who's now part of the elitist in crowd, but he knows she's still the same kid they were when they were growing up in the slums somewhere together, even though he's been relegated to has-been status. I don't know who sings it, but if the power of music means anything, it's in this song. I know it's at least 25 years old because I first heard it in 1980. It's not only dull, it's unnatural to try to follow some rules, steps, stages, or strategies some phony guru made up to supposedly help you live a better life. If you believe in Dr. Get Riddle's 10 life strategies, Mr. Efficiency's 7 habits of highly effective people, Mr. Energiant's 7 days to get the edge, or Preacherman's 7 steps to a better you, you're brainwashed and too stupid to see you're a holistic essence. The world can give you nothing in how to master your life beyond telling you you're a holistic essence. Listen to it. Follow it. You live naturally by intuition, or at least you do if you're tapped into who you really are. If you don't, you're a brainwashed fool. Following the steps and stages that all these self-help phonies made up is artificial, and I say fraudulent because anybody who's truly wise knows that the way life is lived does not operate by any X number of steps or stages of anything, regardless of how common sense they are. And for New Age seekers, there's no supernatural voodoo anywhere, at least not in this life. Trying to live by X number of rules of conduct breaks down after 2 days max because you weren't created to live like a robot following some silly goal-setting rules to capitalist and social success. Life is very simple, yet we have chosen to complicate it by creating these massive psychobabble and self-help industries, which is all a big con job because all you own is the free spirit you were born with, and all you have to do in life is to follow it. Everything else is capitalist psychobabble bull geared to suck money out of you by pretending to sell you knowledge that will enlighten you. Snake oil sales are thriving in the 21st century. The lie of biochemistry and psychopharmacology. The big lie nowadays in the so-called mental health industry, or the psychobabble industry as I call it, is that most human brains are physiologically flawed, which is why people get depressed, feel anxiety, can't sleep, etc. The drug companies say you can't help it, you were born that way with a screwed up brain, but we can help you fix it with our drugs. They shroud it in mystery, acting like they're doing big research on the cutting edge of life, but it's just low-level drugs geared to give you a legal, transient tingle for which they can make billions of dollars from claiming it's a mental health drug, even though it doesn't solve your mental health problem in the long run. It gives you transient good feeling just like any recreational drug does. Nobody says anything because it's sanctioned by the two APAs, the American Psychiatric Association and the American Psychology Association. Only an outsider like me will speak out against it. Psychologists and psychiatrists in general don't have the guts to speak against their trade organization, and besides, it's their cash cow. Write people new prescriptions for drugs at $50 or so a pop, plus get kickbacks from the drug company. Not bad for a few minutes work with every patient. First of all, it seems kind of funny that the human race made it this far, then all of a sudden in the past 20 years they're telling us our brains are messed up and we need drugs to help them operate normally. Secondly, it's not like they can drill a hole into the brain, extract a sample of brain fluid, then determine a human individual has abnormal levels of serotonin in his brain. They have no baseline of normal serotonin for any particular individual. Everyone has a different baseline. They say they can do this by doing a spinal tap on the spine to get some cerebrospinal fluid, but I think it's more bull from them to try to justify the sale of mental health drugs. Thirdly, the big argument for mental health drugs is that it takes the fault and the responsibility away from the individual. This is huge. Now people don't have to blame their mental problems on their own weaknesses as human beings. They're brainwashed to think it's beyond their control. It's an organic problem in their brain. The drug industry says take a pill, we'll solve it for you, but they can't because the problem is not the organic brain. It's the way you live. You create your own biochemistry. You release serotonin and other endorphins through what you eat, how active you are, how much sleep you get, what substances, chemicals, drugs, you take, and your attitude towards your life. If you've got a bad attitude to your life and you're not using up the natural energy in your soul regularly, no amount of drugs can lift that depression or calm down your anxiety. You feel calm and good through what you do that earns you your self-respect and sense of well-being. Mental health drugs to me are the big poison of the 21st century. It takes people's control of their lives and gives it to the psychobablists who write the prescriptions. It makes their job easier. Just write a prescription instead of wasting time in psychotherapy and get paid the same amount of money. Of course, the drug companies are rolling in the dough. Get millions of people hooked on these mental health drugs, then they need them to get their little tingle for the day. It always comes down to money. They don't tell how toxic any drug is to your body. You shouldn't take drugs unless you really need them in medical treatment, not for mental health problems. If you don't live by your true nature, eventually you start feeling mundane, get depressed, then take depression pills which don't work because the problem is one of a wounded soul, not the pharmacology of the brain. You create your own life, biochemistry, and state of being minute by what you do and how you think. Drugs or psychotherapy can't help a person's aesthetic spiritual sensibilities. That's why they don't work. That's why the mental health industry is largely a bust, except for the few people who have real organic brain damage. That's why all those people on depression drugs going to regular therapy sessions are still depressed. The problem is usually that the individual has lost whatever inspiration, power, and beauty he or she might have had at one time, so they go into a permanent mourning for this lost vision of youth and beauty. You didn't have the guts to work your ass off to create yourself to become the person you wanted to be. Instead you sat around buying useless stuff at the mall, eating junk food, watching TV, playing computer games, working a job that wasn't inherent to your true nature, reading romance novels, feeling sorry for yourself so now you're a pasty-faced, overweight, mundane person blaming your pathetic life on a biochemical imbalance you were born with. Get real. It's much easier to blame self-contempt on a biochemical imbalance beyond your control than sell you mental health drugs for the rest of your life. If a dog has got psychological problems, it's because he's out of his natural element. He should be running around outdoors, not cooped up in a house somewhere. He wasn't created to lay around in a house all day. The problem is one of spirit, which causes the biochemical depression, anger, and anxiety in the brain. Live by your natural free spirit and your biochemistry will be fine. Pills can't help a feeling of misery because they don't address the root cause, uninspiration, not following your true nature, not releasing that natural energy you were born with. That's what makes you feel good about your life, releasing your natural, inspired, original energy with some gusto and joy. No pill comes close to this, yet depression and anxiety pills make billions of dollars every year for the drug companies. In the novel 1984, Huxley talks about the populace being pacified by a mental health drug called Soma. He was right. It came to pass. We got millions of people who have been made docile, therefore easily manageable through their use of mental health drugs. It doesn't solve their problems of happiness or human existence, but it relaxes them enough such that they go through life feeling no strong emotions either way. To me, this is a wasted life when you live without releasing your natural passions because they've been dulled down by drugs. The psychopath/sociopath lie. The sociopath is a self-absorbed individual with no conscience or feeling for others and a blatant contempt for polite society or social rules. Lot of people are like this, but they're not psychopathic. The psychopath is the person who is willing to use violence and otherwise hurt people to get what he or she wants with no thoughts of remorse whatsoever. A psychopath is not just some serial killer type of guy. He's also the consummate con artist who acts charming while he robs people blind. Greedy capitalists are psychopaths who would do anything to destroy their competition and increase market share. Because human beings live in a competitive, law of the jungle type of society, many of us resort to cutthroat tactics sometimes. It's the way we are. Only the strong survive. There are 4 types of psychopathy according to psychobabble. Primary psychopaths are classic charmers who fit in but exploit and abuse when they get a good opportunity. Secondary psychopaths are people who like excitement and risk and have some empathy for others. Distempered psychopaths are people who go on binges, either through anger, violence, or sex. Charismatic psychopaths are charming, attractive liars, manipulators and con artists. The common characteristics of all psychopaths are: 1. Egotistical, vain, arrogant. 2. Not capable of true love. 3. Good at looking like a noble person, good at charming and manipulating others. 4. Not able to empathize, feel other people's pain. 5. Very good at faking humility. 6. Braggart. One of the primary causes of sociopathic behavior is believed to be neurological abnormalities mainly in the frontal lobe of the brain. The amygdalae, 2 small regions buried near the base of the brain, have long been known to affect aggression, sexuality, and recklessness. Recently, they have also been shown to affect how people interpret the emotions of others. Subtle damage to the amygdalae may explain many of the characteristics of psychopaths, including the difficulty of getting through to them emotionally. Personally, I don't think too many people completely and neatly fit into the psychopathic box. Many evil people love some other people and love their pets. At the same time, I feel most people naturally live anywhere from self-centered to selfish most of the time, but we delude ourselves into thinking we're good, kind people, which isn't true, because if we were, we would help all the homeless, hurting people of the world, but we live in our comfortable homes in material excess while pretending to be pillars of nobility. If you stop and think about it, we live in a competitive society where you must be dominant over others to be successful. Most men are loners anyway, especially after 30 years old. So the definition of a modern successful man is some guy at the top of the heap without strong friendships to anyone, very similar to the definition of a psychopath. Except for a few extremist psychopaths who become serial killers, most men are status-conscious loners trying to get to the top in their business or at work. Politicians and highly successful business people have to be ruthless and Machiavellian to fight off their competition. We're a bunch of hypocrites when we call street criminals psychopaths but praise the elitist fat cats who exploit others for profit. If somebody comes off too slick and smooth like many politicians and salesmen, chances are they're psychopathic. After reading a chapter out of a textbook on psychopaths, I can't help but feel who do these psychobablists think they are trying to pretend they don't feel special about themselves or highly about themselves, which is what they describe psychopaths as, people who feel highly about themselves. It's normal for a healthy individual to think highly of themselves, but these psychobablists are trying to make it seem like it's wrong, like you're too full of yourself if you do this. But the truth is that these phony intellectuals called psychologists, psychiatrists, etc. like the special status and attention they get from others because of the common perception that they're advanced wise people who know something about the human condition that ordinary people don't know. It's disgusting to me that these nerdy people posing as wise people are trying to tear down the type of people Nietzsche and Ayn Rand described as the heroes of humanity, the ones with the guts to try to be individual enough to live glorious lives. I care about my life. I love myself. I'm trying to live a great life. I think most people are timid, little wimps living in delusion. I don't care enough about them to waste my time trying to get power over them or even to tell them how great I am simply because I don't care what they think of me. But I got psychobablists trying to make me feel bad because I love my life so much I'm trying to live a great one, so they call me a narcissist, antisocial and psychopathic. They should look in the mirror and see some introverted nerd who didn't have the guts to try to live an original, inspired life, so he or she is now hiding behind some phony title as a system-sanctioned wise man or woman. They're all hypocrites. Don't buy into anything beyond yourself. It's great to think highly of yourself. Don't let anyone try to make you feel bad for what you are by nature. Psychobablists, as in psychologists and psychiatrists, are the most arrogant people around for the amount of game they really got. Most of them are geeky-looking nerds with no primal charisma, but they act like know-it-alls, above everyone else. Then they try to analyze the people they're envious of in a negative light. They should realize that they're phony wimps who didn't have the guts to do what they really wanted with their lives, so now they're acting like deep, profound intellectual types, which is all a fake job because true intellectuals take their original thoughts and act on them. They don't just write a bunch of meaningless analytical psychobabble that nobody in the real world can relate to. If you read some of the psychobabble I have, you would come to the conclusion that all these psychobablists writing these articles, classifying people according to some categories they created, are a bunch of arrogant, self-deluded jerks playing God by presuming they have the insight to reduce people down into neat groupings, when the truth is that no two people are the same. Everybody is an individual with their own motives known to no one else but them. These psychobablists assume way too much about human behavior, then write these presumptive articles which most people accept as dogma, but I don't. It stinks of phony elitism to me, the elitism of pretending they have some advanced insights into human behavior that other people don't have. Beyond that, I feel like these psychobablists are taking a stab of vengeance back at all the charismatic, popular, mesomorphic, active people they were envious of as kids when they were nerdy eggheads trying to act like know-it-alls in school because they didn't quite have the guts, the popularity, the social skills, the strong bodies or the vitality to live fun, active, inspired, free-spirited lives. To me it's disgusting to read all this garbage so-called psychologists and psychiatrists write, where they put themselves up on some holy pedestal, then proceed to put everyone in the human race down except for themselves and people who think like them, and this is what we call the science of human behavior. They're the dangerous ones because the system has given them the license to pretend to be our wise people, which makes them a bunch of self-righteous arrogant jerks. It's a crime that we have allowed these phony sciences of human behavior to get so much control over us as a society. They say 4 million children use Ritalin every day in the United States, and the psychobablists who have diagnosed all these children pretend they aren't arrogant by playing with innocent children's lives like that. It's a big tragedy that only a few people like me speak out against. Chapter 3. Mental health is a for-profit capitalist industry. Psychobabble is a money racket one. They try to find things to fix that don't need fixing. Anyone who goes to a psychiatrist ought to have his head examined. Who is anyone to say there is something wrong or not normal in another human being unless they're hurting someone? What is normal? This is what's wrong with the so-called field of psychobabble, overanalysis to the point of absurdity. If you're a sociable person, they say you're overly dependent or codependent. If you're a loner or a person who does things for themselves, they say you're alienated and schizoid. You can't win in the field of psychobabble. They got a negative label for everything. It's an easy way to make money, to be able to say there's something wrong with everybody. To me, it stinks of power and control. That's why I don't believe in it, a bunch of phony experts pretending they know something about life I don't know. Some of these psychologists and psychiatrists should take a look at themselves before they sit on some pedestal and presume to know what's right for other people. Most of them are introverted, narcissistic, delusional people who analyze things too much rather than simply living by their natural passions and actions. If someone was truly wise and enlightened, they would not be in this field. They would recognize it as a pile of bull, then go off to live their own lives true to themselves rather than pretending they have insight into human behavior. I live for now and the future. No one is a prisoner of the past unless they want to be. The way I see it is that so-called therapists and counselors need to string people along to make money off them to keep them coming back for more, so the logical thing is to play up the wounded inner child, past baggage stuff, and spend untold sessions dredging up the past, when the truth is that studies done on people with mental health problems found that those who were undergoing counseling and those who weren't basically got over their problems in about the same amount of time, regardless of whether they got counseling or not. So the point is that you're your best counselor, deal with whatever's ailing you head on, confront it, get over it and move on. The other point is that you move forward. I never look back. Life comes down to keeping yourself inspired. You either know how to do it or you don't. If one of these supposed mental health professionals were telling you the truth, they'd say there are very few cases of organic problems in the brain which lead to mentally disordered thoughts. You create your own brain chemistry by your actions, inaction, and nutrition. Everybody gets down, but the way to get up is to inspire yourself through soulful pursuits and living a healthy lifestyle. If you don't and stay inactive brooding in your rut, you'll sink further into the pit. Inspired action from the soul is the key to life. It took me 2 minutes to say that to you, yet this would never earn any money for a psychologist, to tell you you're weak. Get out and get inspired about your life through soulful pursuits, then expend it through sweat. So they made up this elaborate phony field called mental health and now spend untold hours blabbing to people about their pasts or using some stupid behavior cognitive therapy which means nothing to your life as it really is right now. The talking might be therapeutic to get things off your chest, but you're supposed to have friends and family for that, or be strong enough to stand alone if need be, not go to a shrink. I can go for days and weeks without having a deep heart-to-heart with anyone, and I'm perfectly fine because my stability is inside of me, not in any need I have to purge my thoughts to someone else. But a lot of people have this weakness, the need to talk to others in order to feel good about life. If you have a problem left over from your past, deal with it right now, confront it, think it through, then let it roll off your back. Identify it clearly, analyze it, make a decision and deal with it right there and then. Write a letter to the focus of your anger if you have to, regardless of whether they're dead or alive. You don't have to send it or confront the person, just burn the letter and use that as the symbolic end to the problem, then get on with your life. You can do this all in one afternoon if you want to. Supposedly your past has left you with certain software in your brain such that when A happens, you automatically react with self-destructive behavior. B, to deal with it in your comfortable but dysfunctional way. So what you have to do is look in your past, find out why you're doing this self-destructive behavior. B, resolve it in your mind, live for your soul now, which means try to stay inspired and achieve your purpose in life, and don't bother with all that trivial psychobabble out there. It's just you, your soul, your mission and pursuit of happiness, and that's it. That's how simple life is. Don't buy into all the psychobabble psychago about past baggage, wounded inner child crap, and let it screw your life up, making you think that you're a victim of the past when reality is that every day's a new day. You wake up in the morning with a clean slate. The past is gone. It doesn't matter. You're in control if you can free yourself from your psychobabble self. You're a rational person, you create your future with your mind. Another reason I hate all this past baggage crap is simply that it focuses on the negative instead of the positive. Life is meant to be lived with joy, not to wallow in self-pity. It's supposed to be happy, living for the now instead of dwelling on some long past things in our memories. It's ridiculous that an entire industry is based on this archaic concept. Psychobabble is a money racket too. Going to a psychiatrist has become one of the most dangerous things a person can do. Peter Bregan, author of Toxic Psychiatry. The fact is that the so-called mental health professionals have a vested interest in diagnosing people with mental illnesses and keep them coming back for endless therapy sessions and drug prescriptions so they can make money. Just because they created all these mental health disorders and put them in their big book called the DSM doesn't mean it's not all a figment of the human imagination, since everybody is a loner who lives alone in their heads, known to no one but themselves, which means nobody can ever really understand anybody else, and everybody's life is a series of moods which are constantly changing, therefore no label can apply to anyone in a holistic way. If I go to Psychobabbleist X and tell him I'm feeling down, he says I'm clinically depressed and puts me on drugs, then has therapy sessions probing my past, but then I go home, walk my dog, listen to music and think to myself, life is pretty good. I got a good thing going here compared to most people. I can walk freely without pain, I got a dog who loves me, I got an MP3 player. That's more than a lot of people have. You're still stuck with that depression label, and the psychobabbleist reinforces it every time you go see him. It's in his best interest to keep reminding you you're depressed rather than saying you're cured, you're fine, just live by your natural inspiration. Do things to make you feel good. Keep walking your dog. Keep listening to music, but the psychobabbleist won't say that. He'll say you're messed up. Keep taking these drugs and telling me all about the sad things that happened to you when you were a kid. That's brilliant. Keep dwelling on the sad things that happened to you. It's a big crock of crap. They got all these people claiming they got PTSD. What about all those people who lived through WWI and World War II? They had to get on with their lives. They didn't have PTSD to hide behind. Nowadays, they all need a kick in the ass and be told to get on with it. You live day by day as life happens. You don't wallow in some supposed bad experience you had. It's a great cop-out. They diagnose people with biological deficiencies which they say cause depression and manic depression just by talking to them. They don't do any tests on the organic brain to confirm this. Almost all mental illnesses are caused by people with weak spirits who betray their true natures, then feel sorry for themselves, but nobody ever says this because it's easier to blame it on some imaginary organic brain defect or some traumatic event in your past. Get real. Everybody's life is a tragedy in one way or another. Everybody has something that they'd like more of, like more money, more love, more career success, more self-respect, more muscles, more beauty, etc. The only thing you can possibly do is wake up every day and do the best you can do in honoring who you were born to be by releasing your natural energy for that day, one day at a time. That's as deep as life gets for the salt of the earth, down-to-earth Canadians I grew up with. You work hard, you play hard, and you keep moving. You never stop to wallow in self-pity. When somebody close dies, you know they would have wanted you to continue on with a full, strong spirit, so that's what you do, keep living a full life. Nowadays, a certain segment of our society has degenerated into a bunch of wimps buying into all this crap that these phony intellectuals are trying to sell us about having advanced insights into human life. The last day of my life I'll be following my free spirit, running with it till the end. That's it? You either run with what you feel within yourself or you become another generic, pacified consumer spectator wimp feeling sorry for yourself because you betrayed your potential to be what you were born with the natural inclination to be. It's not rocket science. You don't need a psychiatrist, psychologist, or any kind of psychobabblerist for that. You wake up. You look in the mirror. You either make a decision to honor whatever might be noble inside of you for that one day or make a decision to be a wimp and feel sorry for yourself. I can summarize life down into 4 sentences. 1. True enlightenment comes from knowing your soul, which inspires you to experience life, followed by the constant analysis of it day by day. 2. Find the beauty and inspiration within, then unleash it over a lifetime in order to develop the soul and give it meaning day by day. This will bring you peace and happiness. 3. Treat people with humility, care, gentleness, warmth, honesty, and understanding, and they'll give you all the loving and friendship you might ever need. The golden rule: treat people like you want to be treated. 4. For education, you can learn anything by simplifying it down into manageable bits of core elements, then seeking to understand it. They packaged life to the extreme, creating all manner of syndromes and illnesses, whereas enlightened people know it's the same spiritual flow for everybody as it was for Socrates, Jesus, Columbus, or Robert Johnson, the blues singer. Therapy is the commodity, so they have to make people feel deficient, then pretend they can fix them by brooding over the past and analyzing current problems for as many sessions as possible. Hence, whereas a normal, sane person would get over it and move on, therapists play out the charade, thus earning money, and lost, weak people with money and too much time on their hands get the hired friendship they need to relieve their emptiness for a while, plus an excuse to play out the helpless victim, woe is me role, and everybody plays along, sucking money out of insurance coffers in this packaged, artificial system. Beyond a few people with organic brain dysfunction, life for everyone else should be constant self-analysis to try to stay inspired. An undercover report by a media team found that virtually anyone can be a therapist even without education or training. There's virtually no regulation of this alleged field, but the worst thing they found was the abuses, therapists using their so-called patients, manipulating them, brainwashing them, getting sexual favors, etc. Psychobabble is a money racket. 3. Enlightenment starts when you can break from the lie that the past means anything or anybody outside of you knows anything more about your life than you do. Your attitude and action day by day run your life. You can't change negative things, so the sensible thing to do is to accept, then purge them as quickly as possible. It's you by yourself with your connection to your soul, just like the cavemen, the Greeks, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Van Gogh, Einstein, me and you. They all walked to the beat of their own drums from the moment they got enlightened, trusted themselves, dealt with what was in front of them, and kept moving as the highway of time that life is. You control your life. You need the outside world to the extent that you need money to cover basic bills, but beyond that, the entire game is in your head, so the trick is to develop your own way enough that you don't have to bow down to the small minds and egoists of the outside world to play their little games of ownership and own-upmanship over you. The way you do this is by finding your little spark of beauty and uniqueness and do something worthy with it that someone will appreciate and pay for. That's how to free yourself from the bondage of a capitalist world, plus the fact that as an enlightened person, you should realize material things don't mean that much, so you should have few needs to start out with. Life is intuitive for anyone with sense, even though people don't always make the right choices. They're still aware of what's good and bad for them, even though they might do the wrong things. I'm exactly the same kid I was at 17, despite everything I've been through, such as a massive search for the answers to life. The only bit of knowledge I value within the entire study of human behavior is the organic mapping of the brain, but even that's been questioned because the brain is really a unitary whole that can't be divided into localized areas. It's also subject to the gimmick effect. Hemispheric laterality, right and left brain, visual, spatial and verbal dominance, and the biochemical bases of emotions are not as pronounced as their proponents would have us believe. They're hyping them up to try to get recognition, research money, sell books and, of course, for those massive drug companies to keep selling their pills so they help each other. The drug companies give out research money to the academics who say that mental health drugs raise endorphin levels and make a person feel good, but I say you create your own biochemistry through your actions and attitudes. The psychiatrists get an easy money maker, get their patients hooked on mental health drugs and keep getting the therapy fees if only to fill out a new prescription form and put the onus on the drug rather than actually trying to talk to the person to legitimately help them. It's all a big lie, folks. Imagine if Daniel Boone, Captain Cook, or Columbus heard about all this mental illness Prozac crap as the entity that controls people's lives. It wasn't until I grew strong enough within myself to reject all of the world's knowledge about life, then took the time to contemplate my own and analyze it day by day, that I finally figured it out. It's a battle to keep the sanctity of my soul strong and pure. The outside world is good to help you with practical needs and mild entertainment, but beyond that, it's a circus vying for a piece of you one way or another, usually wanting your money by brainwashing your soul. Just watch a few TV commercials or read a few so-called lifestyle magazines sometimes. See how ridiculous they are, an insult to the intelligence of an enlightened person. It's all about hype and money. Except for objective physical law, everything on the planet was created by man, so it's all fallible. I believe that as human beings, we all have the inner constitutions to take care of our own lives without bowing down to this monstrous industry created out of thin air some 100 years ago, now used as an excuse for every human evil and weakness on the planet. We're as pure as the cavemen or the ancient Greeks. Life is lived on a continuum of inspired action versus loss of self. It's just you on a sliding scale. All that psychobabble is bull except for a very few true cases of biochemical disorder. All those pills are a money racket. You create your own biochemistry through either action or moping. It's all up to you, it's that simple. The only few valid places I see for so-called therapists are in situations which involve people with problems amongst themselves, like a husband and wife or parents with children. In such cases, there may be too much pain and animosity for the players to start talking to one another on their own, so an objective third party may be able to help them out in this way. Also, some kids are so naive and weak that they may need someone to talk to sometimes. The other area is people with biochemical disorders, but it should be obvious in their cases because they're so spaced out, talking all kinds of gibberish. This is the only place that I see a possible legitimate need for therapists. Everything else is just phony, hired friendship for people with something missing from their lives, like the guts to see themselves as they really are and take control of their own lives. No one knows anything more about your life than you do. A so-called therapist is just a paid, phony friend for an hour a week. They sandwich you in between other clients, look in their file quickly to refresh their memory of you, then proceed with the bull. Who are these so-called therapists anyway? What gives them insight into human behavior over and above any other human being? They take a bunch of discrete, unrelated courses at university and get a few degrees, but the courses themselves are just dry, academic theories created by introverted types taught to them by other introverted types, so the amount of insight they actually glean from all of this is negligible. However, when they get the degree, they can put forth the illusion that they know something more about life than the average person does, and that's the game they play. True wisdom is all about insight, it's not a quantitative thing. It's the quality of enlightenment you have for life. You either already got it inside or you don't. You'll never learn it in a classroom. You're born with a certain amount of intuitive potential, but it's up to you whether you'll explore it and manifest it in your life. Even though I laugh at any so-called therapist who uses that little PhD after their names trying to pretend they're more advanced than you or I, the fact is that many therapists don't even have to have degrees to practice, and many have degrees in obscure fields and use them to practice something totally different. You can learn about your own life through introspection, thinking about it, and simply going to the library and reading a few books of life stories about people who went through the same thing that you're going through, like a divorce, disease, etc. True life stories are much more insightful about life than packaged theories. Psychobabble is a money racket for The psychobabblists do hundreds of studies until they eventually realize that physical activity, relaxation, and meditation are good for you, but they still present it as discrete knowledge as though they're mechanically building the formula for a great life with a bunch of one-liner rules, but they either don't seem to realize or don't have the guts to live by whatever is free, intuitive, inspired, sensual, free and loving within themselves, which is one of the reasons society is screwed. It's common sense. It's not rocket science. I intuitively know what's good for me, but they're trying to replace our natural wisdom with this so-called science of human behavior. They're trying to suck the souls out of us, and millions of naive people intimidated by these big social science mental health psychobabble institutions fall for it because they think that just because they're society's formal academic ivory towers, they're automatically right when it's a big money-making industry based on fraud. They pretend we don't have a pure holistic essence of natural wisdom within ourselves and offer us all this fake social sciences crap that they claim is the wisdom of life because it was manufactured at a formal academic institution. The bottom line is the expansion of the field to constantly make more money through book sales, workshops of new concepts, new therapies with fancy-sounding names, and mental health drugs. Overanalysis to the point of absurdity is great to expand the mental health industry, but at the same time it's a bunch of fake knowledge polluting the minds of all the people buying into it. It's a big tragedy that almost nobody except for Thomases and me talk about. Just about anyone can hang out a shingle and practice as a therapist/counselor. You only have to be licensed to be referred to as a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Some so-called psychologists have faked their credentials with phony out-of-state degrees you can buy through mail order. In many states, there are no laws against unlicensed therapists, and even if there were, it would almost be a waste of time to sue them since they have no license to take away and no malpractice insurance to plunder, so no lawyer's gonna take the case. Not only can therapists take your money and string you along, they can destroy people's lives with stupid, phony therapy that has these people doing all kinds of weird things that the therapist tells them to do, like to probe their pasts, bring up all kinds of crap, make up phony memories, then seek to hold people from their pasts accountable for their so-called deviant behavior. They also prescribe monumental amounts of addictive mind-altering drugs like Prozac and Ritalin. Beyond the usual, sexual abuse, false memories, I heard a former gay guy on the radio talk about how he healed his homosexuality, and it was so obvious that his therapist had totally brainwashed him because gaydom is like eye color, you're born with it, you can't change it. This happens to a lot of weak people. Some therapists have been educated on one theory like cognitive behavior therapy or behavior modification and simply blindly try to fit every patient into that mold. PBS's Frontline did a series of reports about therapists who blindly insisted that a lot of their female patients were victims of child sexual abuse, which was now repressed in their memories, so they had to probe to create false memories to get them out. Too much overanalysis is bad. Get off it and just be a good, happy, loving person. Love yourself as a worthy person, and you should naturally feel a desire to love others and connect with people in a meaningful, spiritual way. I'm inclined to believe that a large part of it is the self-fulfilling prophecy, meaning that weak people read books or are told they have a syndrome by a so-called therapist, identify with the characteristics of that syndrome, then categorize themselves, thereby perpetuating their negative outlooks, the net result being that they justify and magnify feelings of sadness, shame, and guilt within themselves. For instance, if a so-called therapist tells you that you're depressed because of your past, you legitimize it, justify it, accept your sadness, and say to yourself that's who you are, you can't change, so you identify yourself as a depressed person and live out the stereotype of the morbid, pill-popping sad sack. The entire mental health field is all about getting the supposedly sick individual to adapt to their dull definition of normality, when the only real people around are the originals, who are often classified as mental deviants. Take, for example, the phenomena of attention deficit disorder or learning disabilities. These concepts didn't exist 30 or 40 years ago. Some guys came along, wrote them all up, got published, legitimized them, and now they're the hot buzzwords, with tons of Ritalin being prescribed for these so-called ad kids. It's just a dumping ground for energetic, free-spirited, or disruptive kids, a cop-out, a means of control for the teachers. I don't buy any of it. You could blow up all the psychology libraries in the world and nobody would miss them except for the unemployed casualties and the lost sheeple out there who feel they need therapy as a crutch or some kind of paid friendship. If you feel blue, it doesn't necessarily mean you're depressed. They make a big deal about depression, making it sound like some deep advanced mental illness when it's just another word for uninspiration, and anybody sane knows the battle is to snap out of it through inspired action to reclaim control and self-mastery over their lives. There are no such things as clear-cut diseases as in the medical profession. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM, can only make subjective categories regarding mental illnesses when in actuality, human behavior is a broad spectrum and doesn't fall neatly into the disorders they've defined as gospel. So if someone diagnoses you with a mental illness, first of all, there's no such thing as neatly defined mental illnesses, and secondly, you're a dynamic individual. What you feel today is not necessarily how you'll feel tomorrow. We change our moods all the time through either an act of will, activity or inactivity, and the foods we eat. If you go to a therapist with mild symptoms of something like depression, your therapist will make it seem worse than it actually is because he wants to make more money from you or your insurance company. It's very easy for him to write you a prescription of some kind of mind-altering, pacifying drug to get you hooked and keep you coming back for more. Another one is all the weak, negative people out there blaming their pathetic lives on something beyond themselves like a wounded past, then giving the responsibility to the mental health field to heal them, saying they need counseling, but it's really an excuse to continue staying morbid and put the onus on their counselor to give them the insight they need to change. Watch all the phony psychologists on court TV sometimes, the hired guns for each side contradicting each other with psychobabble. Therapists who are members of HMOs usually get a flat rate for every session they have with a patient, so it's in their interest to get rid of you as quickly as possible. Often, if you have a major organic condition which requires major work, they might simply misdiagnose or downplay it so as to save the HMO money. Chapter 4. The psychology courses at college are about other people's BS, not your individual purity. The psychology field is criminal fraud 1. Everybody lives alone in their own heads, known to no one but themselves. Every human being is a loner living a solitary life. Because of this fact, there can never be a science of human behavior. It's no secret that I'm a great critic of all this foolishness. I write about this form of iatrogenesis and give you the best psychology, mental health, job and college education book ever created because I was a naive kid once and got into it in college because I sincerely wanted to learn about life but realized it's total crap. But you have to reach a point in the experience of life to not be intimidated by the formal bullshit of the world in order to see the truth. The truth is that this field is one of the biggest frauds in the modern era. The so-called science of psychology is a collective delusion and fraud by the people within the field in order to preserve their job security. They have managed to fool almost all of humanity into believing that they have real insight into the human essence, how people think and feel, and that people fall into the many categories they have created for mental illness, intelligence, etc. The truth is that if they had insight into humanity, there would be no more need for constant research, because once you understand human life, that's it. There's nothing more. The insight they don't have is that every human being has a true nature. Your allegiance in life, if you're free and enlightened, is to discover your true nature, then live by it day by day without getting sucked into the artificial matrix created by the brainwashing forces of society. Almost everybody has been brainwashed. A part of it is the acceptance of the phony fields of psychology and mental health as having some advanced formal knowledge about life. It's a lie and a tool to control the people, to give up their own freedom and autonomy, to buy into the fraud that others know more about their lives than them. To me, this is a societal criminal force that keeps people down with labels and lies, therefore it's evil, but almost nobody has got the guts to speak up against this evil force that most of us buy into, called the fields of psychology and mental health. It's hard to admit your life is a lie, but if we are to be an enlightened race, we can't have one box over here full of phony knowledge and say these are our psychology mental health experts. We have to respect everybody as the autonomous experts of their lives and butt out with the bullshit. If you really want to be enlightened, you seek out loving, caring people to work as counselors, social workers, geriatric aides, etc. We can't have just any cold-hearted asshole who fulfills all the course requirements and wants an easy job, which is what's going on now in all these phony social sciences, people pretending to be doing deep research. How deep can you go with the human condition? You cannot study people using quantitative scientific methods. It's all a farce. People want love and empathy. After that, the best anyone can do is be who they are by nature. There is nothing else deep and advanced. There is no subconscious mind or self-actualization. That's just deep doo-doo. Stupid is as stupid does. All the clones follow the bull because they're too stupid and weak to say this is bullshit. I feel sorry for all those naive students who go to college every year expecting something deep and advanced in psychology only to learn it's about food pellets and Freudian crap like the Oedipus complex. I was never in love with my mother and secretly in competition with my father. I loved them both. They tried to help me reach my natural potential. Intelligent naive college students take these courses, do all the course requirements, then ask themselves, what was that crap all about? It has no relevance to my life. It doesn't help me improve my life, but they're in this matrix. They see all the clones around them following. The teachers are mostly timid people teaching this crap for a paycheck, and that's the scamming game. Imagine your ancestors. At some point, they were agrarian people living off the land, getting by on their own. Now all of a sudden we got head experts, we got them telling us a baby or a cat needs 25 vaccinations, we got Wi-Fi EMF waves coming at us from everywhere. If we want to get enlightened, the insanity has to stop somewhere where people out there control us in some way. According to them, your own intuition and life experience followed by analysis is not good enough for life wisdom. A bunch of assholes have to do about 1,000 studies on some little area of life, then you do a literature search and you get about 1,000 articles and books on something like shyness, anxiety, loneliness, widowhood. I'm supposed to read all this crap to maybe learn something about this little area of life. The only problem is that a person is a unitary essence. Their life is not divided into little categories. A smart person would screw all this crap. I got my own intuition. I'll live by that to deal with this situation. The whole idea is ridiculous that you have to study for several years to earn the right to talk to someone to help them with life's problems as a way to earn a living. You either have that natural intuitive empathy and insight or you don't. That's it. Some empty nerd can't get it by studying courses. Some 20-year-old kid who was always loving and warm can talk to anyone and make them feel understood and loved without touching any psychobabble ever. They create all this stuff out of fiction and millions of people buy into it as deep, advanced stuff. This is classic Hans Christian Andersen's Emperor's New Clothes, everybody buying into bullshit. You can't really help people with psychobabble. They are what they are. The best they can do is accept who they are and live with it. Nobody changes unless they change their brain chemistry through a hit in the head, prolonged substance abuse, prescription drugs, ECT, dementia, etc. Only the organic brain can change consciousness. You cannot change the essence that is you. John Milton said man is not changed by place or time. My 5-year-old self is me now. After all the bullshit in life, I didn't change one bit. I'm still a lusty, free individual. Thank God I didn't let the world brainwash me. It's funny and sad to me how they've taken something as simple as talking to someone feeling troubled in a friendly way and tried to make it a massive complicated scientific bullshit business and industry. You can't drill a hole into somebody's head, do a biopsy and say you got a biochemical deficiency. You can't determine anything with a CAT scan but brain activity. What is the definition of normal? Who is anyone to tell a kid he's not normal because he doesn't want to sit in a desk all day? School is not normal for a kid. Playing is. Anybody who buys into this system is massively brainwashed. It's all classic mind control. The only mentally healthy people are the ones who see past all this system bullshit. Which side are you on, system clone or enlightened human? The psychology field is criminal fraud too. Every individual is a total loner in life, living alone in their own heads. This fact alone makes it impossible to have any semblance of a science of human behavior, because nobody knows what anyone else is thinking. Nobody knows what one other person is thinking, even among the closest, most intimate two people, so how can you possibly have a science of human behavior? What can you possibly study about people that helps you learn about what they're thinking and doing? Everything about life is right here, right now, with the unique people involved. Everybody uses their own natural consciousness to deal with whatever they're doing. Nobody uses that crap from those academic journals. It's a separate reality, all that crap in all those journals, but this is supposed to be the new, cutting-edge knowledge that helps us live better lives? It does nothing but sit there waiting for naive college students to use it for writing their essays, and that's it. We could burn all these social science journals and nobody would skip a beat, except for the publishers making money selling them all to the libraries and members of those silly professional organizations for all those make-work fields like behavior analysis. A person with any number of degrees in psychology is probably brainwashed by three stupid theories they hold up as the linchpins of life: psychoanalysis, behaviorism, and humanism. Life is really about knowing your true nature, living by it, and analyzing your life day by day to prepare for the next day. It's not about silly artificial ideas some nerd thought up, like your past meaning something to your life right now, or how you can be manipulated by rewards and punishments. You have a fixed essence. If you're enlightened, you live by it. You don't care about the reward system of the world with its trinkets. Every human has a soul. That is, or should be, their driving force. If it isn't, they got brainwashed by the world. It's a control, manipulation, superiority fraud, to presume that a formal establishment institution has superior knowledge about the human condition within the academic field called psychology, which they use firstly to fool almost everybody into thinking they do, but they don't, then secondly to create a diagnostic statistical manual of mental disorders to claim that people can have all kinds of mental illnesses when not one person knows what any one other person is thinking anywhere, ever. The fact that we have created these fake fields violates human freedom, because everybody alone has their own reality, their own standards, with the ability to reach the highest enlightenment alone by themselves that any human or group of humans can. We should have the right to pursue our lives freely, but we have created these fields which define normality for us and try to make everybody conform to these standards. Of those that don't, they put them into some kind of category, either in school or later into some kind of mental illness category. They're trying to say that I, over here, by myself, cannot come to the greatest human insights possible on my own. They say that we over here at this big building called the psychology department at this college have the top, advanced knowledge about human life right here. You don't. You're just an average plebe. We know the truth. If you want this knowledge and power, you have to come here, take all these courses, waste your money and time and get indoctrinated by our ideas. Furthermore, we have the power to define normal human behavior and abnormal human behavior. We can say there is something wrong with you in school, if you get in trouble with the law or go to the hospital. We can talk to you and decide that you have a mental disease. We can lock you up and make you to take drugs and shock therapy. Government social workers and mental health experts can go to families and say you might be the father of this kid, but you do not have the insight, knowledge, and expertise we have about life, because we have the psychology degree that says we were trained at an indoctrination school to be phony experts in human life. We know what's better for your kid than you. We're taking him away, putting him on Ritalin, or something like that. They're so screwed as a social science field that they define their phony science as a compilation of no-edge supposedly gleaned through studies in journals using the scientific method. The problem with this is that a human being is intuitive, living by a pure essence or soul given by the Creator, whatever that is, God or nature. All the silly studies ever created in all those silly journals mean nothing to me next to sensing my life, knowing what I feel and living it. This is a massive crime against humanity, and most of us are so brainwashed that we take it. This is mind control perpetrated by society on us, the people. It's so entrenched that most people buy into it, this idea that there is a formal list of formally defined mental illnesses, when it's really a fraud that enslaves people, and it enslaves all the wimpy people who line up to be victims, who want a mental illness diagnosis because it makes life easier for them. It takes the responsibility away from their wimpiness, inability to deal with life, and gives it to this fraudulent industry that's glad to take their money. There might be the occasional person with a real traumatic brain injury or brain chemical imbalance that affects mental functioning, but everything else is just plain human weakness and laziness. The psychology field is criminal fraud. 3. Every human soul is unique. There are no categories. In an enlightened society, everybody would understand this and be free to live by their true nature, just like any animal must do if it is to be in harmony with itself. If somebody is a danger to others or themselves, we lock them up, but other than that, everybody lives alone in their own heads. Everybody either creates their lives or doesn't do much of anything. The highest you can possibly go in life is to live by your true nature without being brainwashed by the world system. That's what they should teach people to aspire to starting in grade school, but they don't. They try to make everybody obedient clones who buy into the capitalist achievement ambition materialistic matrix. You want to know why people are screwed up? It's because we betray who we really are by allowing ourselves to get indoctrinated by the world's BS. We're trained to be scared wage slaves, and if we complain, they send us to the mental health department to get fixed. Nobody can do anything much to help anyone else with their state of being. They can help with love, friendship, money, food, housing, and education to learn a vocational skill, but not with how any individual lives alone in their own head. All the inspirational bullshit in the world fades within 1 hour. All the crap that any psychobabblist ever thought up, or all that crap in all those journals, mean nothing because every individual has to live with themselves all the time. Their natural essence is what guides them. All this junk from the world is just someone's bullshit next to that. This is why there is no true science of human behavior, because everyone is living out their own private fantasy. You can't understand this or categorize it. Everybody has to live out their own unique journey. Go back to Viktor Frankl's insight from living in a concentration camp. He said, "I alone create my attitude about how I deal with life." What we have is a massive infrastructure of oppression. We live in a capitalist society based on money, so we have these limited fields of psychology and mental health based on quantitative studies and phony categories of life created by phony intellectuals, which altogether are a lie and morally wrong. They yield nothing to true insight and enlightenment. They don't help people. They keep them downtrodden so they can make money off therapy, drugs, tests, books, journals, magazines, psychology courses, psychology degrees, etc. Every school and school board gets a certain amount of money for every kid diagnosed with a learning disability, so it's in their best interest to diagnose as many kids with a learning disability as possible. Over 10,000 colleges in the world, each with a psychology department, make lots of money teaching psychology courses. What if the human race became enlightened and realized it was all a lie? All those psychology departments and all that money and those jobs would vanish immediately. Sociology would follow, and all the other so-called social sciences, which are all a lie next to what any enlightened individual knows in his or her soul, that they have a true nature that they must live by through releasing their natural energy day by day, every day, to match an inner standard they feel about themselves if they are to be in harmony with who they were created to be. Psychology and mental health are industries geared to make money for all the nerds who work in them, too scared to speak up and demand reform. Everybody is an individual. If somebody has a problem, talk to them. See what's eating them. If you can, then deal with them as an individual. If you can't talk to them, if they're not a danger to anybody, leave them be. You can't righteously put a diagnostic mental health label on someone, then treat with that lie called psychotherapy, because the past doesn't matter. Mental health drugs might elevate hormones in the brain for a while, but do not address the essence of a person, which is all that matters: their consciousness, their state of being right now. You have to know who you are and earn your self-respect all the time. If you don't, you betray yourself. The modern world is full of self-betrayal, people betraying who they really are by nature like phony experts of life. Do you believe you have a subconscious mind? Do you believe what you're told without asking yourself, is this bullshit? Most people don't know themselves because the brainwashing machine got them quick through school, church, and TV. The closest, most intimate couple barely knows 10% of what the other is really all about. Most women don't know much about the incredible sexual fantasies every man has all the time. Most men, if they're married or working a job, are thinking about their next opportunity to masturbate in peace, but how come we never see anything about that in a psychology textbook? There's real life, then there's all that BS. In some book or journal somewhere. You can't study anything about people beyond the common sense and wisdom of one enlightened person who can gather facts and sense what's going on through intuition. I bet somebody out there is studying something called bathroom psychology, how people use the bathroom. Who gives a crap about whatever crap they end up with? It's like a cult for the people in this phony field. Once they invest several years studying this stuff at college and figure out it doesn't yield any insight into life, most people are too wimpy to face the truth. They're now part of the in-group. In order to protect their cash cow, they have to keep the illusion. The people at large are brainwashed about this stuff. Plenty of victims line up to get a mental illness diagnosis because it makes life easier for them. They get an easier life when diagnosed as a mentally ill person, since the lying propaganda is now that a mental illness is a bona fide illness beyond a person's control due to a biochemical imbalance, not wimpiness and weakness. This works both ways. I heard a father trying to get his son diagnosed as a gifted kid because he wanted the kid to get free special classes, but he didn't realize that if the kid is truly gifted and not just being placed in this category because he studies his ass off, he will realize his true natural potential regardless of what the school does. True geniuses discover their true natures and pursue them on their own. They don't need artificial categories from the outside world. I knew one kid who was classified as gifted and prodded by his grandmother until he dropped out of college and became a bum because she pushed him into being something he wasn't naturally. The psychology field is criminal fraud for. People should be left to pursue their natural potential, not put into artificial categories that may screw them up, especially kids. Why do several million people waste their time on this meaningless crap? It's because of iatrogenesis. Psychology and mental health are capitalist growth industries out to expand and make money even though the product is crap, phony knowledge. This is an entrenched system that employs several million people. It's an example of the danger of an academic establishment for anything that's not hard science or logic. The phony social sciences have brainwashed the world, asserting that this phony knowledge is greater than the wisdom of individuals who can see the truth clearly without all this extraneous junk piled onto us. This is the danger, phony knowledge taking over the world and all the brainwashed plebeians buying into it, just like George Orwell predicted in the novel 1984 with the Ministry of Truth. If you want to be a psychologist, you'll be a phony expert system mouthpiece, which can be a comfortable life. It will be a lie, but that shouldn't matter to the average person, because for most brainwashed people it's about how you're perceived by others within the system rather than living by the truth you feel within yourself, which is buried away anyway. Most people's true natures are covered over by many layers of indoctrination, just like you've been indoctrinated to think psychology is cool, neat, advanced knowledge about life. There is nothing more advanced than your own pure thoughts about life. A kid doesn't need some asshole to tell him he's got ADHD and he's gonna have to go on drugs and get special lessons, therefore be stigmatized. He needs love like any kid. He needs to be asked, what do you like to do, what's your true nature, let's explore your life to see if we can find something you can do that can help you become a noble, self-respecting person and maybe be useful to others. The beacon of light in my soul tells me to enlighten whoever will listen to me about the darkness in the world. A big part of it is the social science infrastructure of phony knowledge. The people on the academic accrediting boards and on the boards of individual colleges could get the guts to say we need a new system to teach real knowledge, but they won't because they're all too scared of opposing this fraudulent, entrenched system, thereby losing their jobs. The students are brainwashed too. All their lives they've been taught not to criticize. Simply take notes, regurgitate back what they're told, get the mark on the transcript, get the degree or degrees, get the job without critically asking, is this bullshit or what? This so-called science has not provided me with one tidbit of knowledge to help me live a better life. They taught me the word self-actualization. What exactly does that mean? How do you self-actualize every day, day by day? It's just some vague term. It doesn't help anyone improve their lives. Most people are worried about paying bills, eating junk food, getting off, getting high, having a laugh and watching TV. They have no interest in flowery words that tell you to be a noble, stoic warrior for your life without explaining how exactly a person does that. They just say this is the highest stage of life. What do you mean stage of life? There are no stages. I create my life every single day as I live it. I don't reach some change, then I'm different, at that stage. My consciousness is always the same. What about doing something hard every day to release your natural energy and feel inspired as an aesthetic way of life? You'll never see that in any psychobabble textbook. Living for the glory and reverence of life because you're alive, you feel it, you can, you want to because it's a gas, a rush, like listening to your favorite song. Do psychobabblists know anything about living life for the love of it, the fun, the feeling? What exactly do all those stupid little articles in all those journals do to help improve human life? You're a slave to this systematic bullshit. You can choose to become a part of it if you want, but during your career, you will feel deep down that there's something seriously wrong here unless you're a soulless psychopath or brainwashed clone to start with. They always say they're doing research. If there are 10,000 colleges with psychology departments all doing research, there has got to be a point of critical mass bullshit, because there's not much to research beyond getting up off your ass and being who you were born to be by nature, or being a brainwashed, complacent asshole. That's your choice every day when you wake up. The so-called sciences and industries of mental health and psychology are mind control instruments geared to be one more nail in the coffin of individual freedom by pretending that there is a body of knowledge that is more advanced than me as an individual, taking a look at someone, talking to them for a few minutes and figuring them out as best as I or anybody can based on my own God-given intuition and the wisdom I developed through experiencing my life. That's why I'm against it. They say that's not good enough. Forget the fact that humanity got along without all this foolishness for 10,000 or more years before the psychobabble was created. They now claim to be the final authority on our minds and souls. It's dangerous, evil, and totalitarian when some system mouthpiece can put a label on someone that limits them. Everybody is who they are. That's it. You live alone in your head with who you are. That's your normal. As long as you don't kill or hurt other living things, fuck off. Don't try to play me as a stupid asshole with your system-sanctioned bullshit. How many more lives does this industry ruin than it helps? How many kids were told there is something wrong with them based on other people's definitions of life, as opposed to leaving the kid develop by his own true nature, helping him along the way? It's an attack on my humanity as a free individual for the formal mainstream establishment institution to say we know better and more about your life than you do. They say you have a subconscious mind that only one of our phony experts can decipher with therapy. I don't have a subconscious mind. I hide nothing from myself. My dreams are a collection of ideas about what I've been recently thinking about, my past and gibberish. There is nothing mysterious there. My conscious mind right now is my essence and soul. There is nothing else, no hidden psychoanalytical bullshit. The psychology field is criminal fraud 5. There should be criminal charges against the people who run these professional mental health psychology organizations for lying to people about phony disorders they have. For humanity to become enlightened, one step is to drastically change this mental health psychology fraud. You're free to seek a career and job security as a wage slave, buying into it and being part of this phony machine, but at some point in time you will realize, like Winston Smith did in the novel 1984, that it's a big scam and you're the sucker who fell for it. I saw the film Jimmy P. Psychotherapy of a Plains Indian after I had finished writing this. It shows how ridiculous psychotherapy is, filling this basic man up with silly ideas. He is what he is. He has a true nature. Everything else imposed on him is a crime. How deep can the human mind go? All anyone owns is their true nature. How deep can relationships go with other people? Is that line from some poem true? Even the closest among us are still universes apart in the privacy of our minds. How does anyone stay inspired every day? Do they ever teach you that in any psychology course anywhere? Everybody has to live alone in their own head. All the psychobabble, inspiration and BS coming at you fades very quickly. You have to create your own standard of life and what you want to the best of your ability. Nobody can just take a bunch of random, unrelated courses at college then all of a sudden become an expert at life and gain insight into the human condition. It comes through a mix of natural intuition, analyzing yourself to find your true nature, and analyzing your experiences day by day to understand how people really live in the real world. Everybody automatically sizes up everyone they come across. It's a survival instinct, friend or foe, yet modern Western society with its capitalist bent wants to monetize everything. Take our natural power away from us, give it to phony experts, then sell it back at us, and millions of people fall for the scam of some nerd in a lab caught pretending to be a deep thinker, dispensing advice to the common plebes about their lives because they're too stupid to figure them out for themselves. This is the 20th century marketing paradigm for all the psychology, mental health, self-help stuff. A lot of people are starting to see through the matrix that it's a bunch of doo-doo. Every human being has to live with themselves and create their lives as they live them. The mental health, psychology, and psychiatry industries have done a great job brainwashing most of the people into thinking these phony experts have some kind of advanced knowledge about the human condition, where they know more about other people's lives than these people know about their own lives. Have you ever heard someone say, "I'm left-brained" or "she's right-brained"? It's like saying I'm a stupid asshole for buying into all that silly brainwash that doesn't mean anything. Left-brained, right-brained. Somebody drilled holes into someone's head and realized we use different parts. I am because I think as a holistic essence. That's it. Everything else is BS. Their three big theories are psychoanalysis: you bury negative things in your past away in something called a subconscious mind through repression; behaviorism, a person responds to rewards and punishments; and humanism, some vague ideas about the nobility of human beings to self-actualize. These theories don't tell me how to live day by day. I don't have a subconscious mind. I don't hide anything from myself. I have no particularly bad memories of my childhood. I don't care about the past. I create my life as I live it. I don't repress anything. I may forget because it's buried away in my long-term memory, but I'm not purposely repressing bad memories. I don't need to pay a therapist to reminisce about my past to unlock phony hidden secrets they say I have buried inside of me somewhere that I have to open up and free myself. As far as behaviorism goes, I spent 4 years in the military making my bed in order to avoid punishments, but as soon as I left, I stopped. Behaviorism, rewards and punishments, has no effect on the human soul. It causes temporary changes in behavior. It doesn't change what a person is by nature, even though Thorndike, Skinner, and the Jesuits claimed they could make a child turn out any way they wanted through imposing a system of rewards and punishments. It's not true. You're born a certain way. You have to deal with society's bull as you grow up, but if you're strong, you eventually become who you were born to be by nature. The psychology field is criminal fraud 6. Humanism is a joke. Some guy by the name of Abraham Maslow created some fancy-looking diagram called the hierarchy of needs with self-actualization at the top, but he didn't tell you how to self-actualize every day, day by day. Most people I know are mooks. They don't want to reach into themselves to discover the greatest, most noble thing they are capable of, then live by it. They want to make some money any way they can, live comfortably, get drunk, eat junk food and be entertained. I don't like the brainwashing effect the mental health psychobabble industry has done on the human race, giving mental health professionals a halo effect, giving them too much power over people as though they have some kind of advanced insights into the human condition, but they don't. They only pretend to. They often abuse that power by prescribing drugs, electroconvulsive shock therapy, committing people to mental health wards involuntarily, and string people along in therapy sessions pretending to try to unlock deep things from their past, but in reality only trying to make more money. I heard stories about people going to psychiatric wards to get voluntarily admitted for real help they wanted. The first thing they do is put you on drugs, and if you refuse they threaten to kick you out or punish you. The therapist's business is to make money through therapy, so it's in their best interests to find as much as they can that's wrong with a person in order to make as much money as possible through therapy and prescribing drugs. They typically try to string people along for as long as they can, often by diagnosing them with 2 or more mental illness categories. This model of business is unethical because the so-called professional doesn't make money unless the person is mentally ill, so almost all of them overdiagnose people with all kinds of fake mental illnesses. Just look at that Svengali who manipulated Brian Wilson of the Beach for several years, turning him into a little wimp dependent on this ass to think for him. It's a big money racket. I heard stories about people who were not a danger to themselves or others getting involuntarily committed. It's too much control. They're giving a bunch of phony experts control over the most vulnerable people in society. They learn those 3 lame theories I just mentioned and those fictitious categories of people in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, then they supposedly become experts who can judge people and put them in different categories, but there is not one human being on the planet who knows what any other human being is thinking or feeling. These people are modern-day witch doctors. Their power is the power of illusion, to pretend they have advanced knowledge about how people operate, but they have no more insight than any human being with average intelligence, because you can't learn intuition, compassion, likability, and insight through books or in a classroom. You either naturally have these abilities or you don't. It's a big tragedy, to give someone the power to talk to someone for 5 minutes, diagnose them into some mental illness category or several, then start them on drugs and other therapies to get the cash register ringing. The more people you diagnose with problems, the more money you make, even if there is nothing really wrong with them. It's not about caring people trying to help their fellow man. It's more like a dry clinical machine. Get a person diagnosed with one of the big mental illnesses that brings in lots of money and has lots of drugs available for it. Get the person hooked on the mental health drugs so they always feel a little bit hazy and can be perpetual patients. We need wise, enlightened, friendly, compassionate people to deal with our weak, confused lost souls, not some introverted nerds with a bunch of phony book knowledge and big egos pretending to be know-it-alls. We have to get rid of those categories and treat everyone as an individual. There is no scientific way to measure or understand any human being. They can't measure the neurotransmitters in someone's brain and determine that they have a biochemical brain imbalance. The best anyone can do is talk to someone and hope they're telling the truth. You can't watch anyone day after day to see how they live. Everyone's life is their own unique journey. There is no science that can explain the psychology of the human condition. It's pure fiction. The social science fields are a testament to human creativity and foolishness. People with big egos never tire of trying to explain the human condition. Everybody has their own true nature. You can't go much further than that. People are a lot more selfish to evil than they think they are. If they weren't, 30,000 kids would not be dying every day of starvation and curable diseases according to UNICEF's child mortality statistics, while we gorge on junk food, fashion, video games, and stupid new self-help books ad tapes. Everything else with people is right now with the players involved. You can't study some social situation then predict what people will do. Individuals do whatever they want until the day we're implanted with a microchip that will control our behavior and make us docile wimps. So-called mental health professionals are at the same level as psychics. Both have some bullshit hocus pocus to try to dail the patient with their powers, then use whatever their intuition can quickly come up with and hope they're right, except that we worship the mental health professionals as system-sanctioned wise people while we laugh at the psychics. On top of that, almost every mental professional gets their patients on drugs as quickly as possibly. It's wrong for society en masse to buy into this stuff. Beware of the field of psychology and its many subfields. It's a testament to man's creativity, delusion, and foolishness, to create great realms of fiction pretending to gain deeper understanding into the human condition. Every psychologist feels like he or she has to add some more BS to this fake field that's supposedly about further understanding the human condition, when the truth is that we're all born alone with God-given wisdom to help us understand our lives. We all live alone in our own heads, known to no one but ourselves. To claim to create a science of human behavior when longtime couples still barely know each other and are universes apart in the privacy of their minds is a great scam, arrogance, and a testament to the stupidity of the human race in creating fake knowledge that loads of people buy into, or at least pretend to. Human beings seemed to get along fine before they tried to monetize this field of psychology and mental health en masse in the 1920s, when William James and his investors marketed it to parallel the precision of the medical field with neatly classified mental illnesses that could be clearly diagnosed. That's the model, but it's a lie, because every human being is a unique flow of consciousness that no other human being will ever know or can know. They claim to be scientific and discount anything that can't be measured, which is the soul, essence, and consciousness of every human being. The subconscious mind is a great scam, claiming that you hide most of you from yourself because you're repressed. I hide nothing from myself, but it's a great way to fool people into thinking they need therapy to unravel some fake repression from their past.